Hey BookTube, this is Samantha, and I know my setting's a little different, but my husband is playing Dying Light, which is a zombie game, and doing the washer, so the living room's kind of off balance at the moment, so here we are. Now, today's video, I wanted to put something out, but I didn't want to put out any of my planned videos any earlier, so I decided to do this book tag. Now, I first saw this video done by The Wild Sasha, who I'm subscribed to, so I'll leave her channel and the link for her video down below. And then I'm also going to leave the original tag creator, who is Lindsay's Little Library, and I'll leave her video down below as well. I saw the questions for what this book tag would be, and I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to cover how I tackle some of these book questions and book dilemmas. So here we go. Dilemma number 1, book storage. How do you store and organize your books? How I organize my books is I first organize them alphabetically by genre, and then I go in alphabetical order by author within that genre. When it comes to a series within a genre, what I typically do is I will have it in series order, but I still stick to the author organization. When it comes to my fantasy books, I have a lot of books that are in a series, but I also have a lot of books that are not in a series. They're standalone books, such as Priory of the Orange Tree. So then what I do is within my fantasy genre, I have my series first. So I organize fantasy books in a series and then alphabetical order, and then I do standalone fantasy, which is in alphabetical order of its own. So hopefully that makes sense. And then I always do my fiction first because it's the stuff that I gravitate towards, and then the few nonfiction books that I do have are put towards the end. So that is how I normally organize my bookshelves, and whenever I do move into our house, you guys will be able to see that firsthand on how I organize my books. So that'll be a nice little treat for all y'all. Dilemma number 2, tracking. How do you keep track of what you've read and what books you own? Now this, for sure, I use Goodreads for tracking what I have read. When it comes to books that I own, I still use Goodreads, but I haven't cataloged all the books that I own, so it's not a true faithful adaptation of what I actually own, and I don't even use it, so I'm just winging it, I guess. Do any of you guys track what books you own? I mean, it's a good idea, especially when you're at the bookstore and you're like wondering if you have that book or not, which I have done multiple times, so maybe I do need to start keeping track of that. Dilemma number 3, borrowing. Do you lend your books out? Yes, but only to people that I know I'm going to get the book back from and who know how much I love reading. Now, there's a lot of people that I know that also know that I really love reading, but there is a slim percentage of people who know how much I love and value my books and recognize that these books are almost like an heirloom to me, my whole library. So whenever I do loan a book out, I only loan it to people that I trust and that I know are going to take care of my book and will eventually get the book back to me. I don't worry so much about when I get the book back, just a matter of whenever they finish it. Sometimes what will happen too is a friend will borrow a book and then it's been like a month or 2 or so, and they're like, you know what, Samantha, I just haven't gotten around to it. I want to give you the book back so I don't forget, you know. So it's those people who they don't forget that they borrowed the book that I can trust my books to, because I know they'll remember if I don't. Dilemma number 4, buying. How do you buy or acquire your books? Now, this has definitely changed over time. So I used to get books whenever I could. In my hometown, they will have a book sale at the library, and I would go to that book sale, and oh my god, it was like a treasure trove of books, and I would just buy whatever books sounded interesting, because for paperbacks it was 25 cents and for hardcover it was $1. So I do still have some of those books on my shelves, but nowadays I'm a lot more selective about what books I actually buy. One, because I only have so much bookshelf space, but two, I'm starting to learn that I should probably be a little more selective when it comes to what books I actually want to have on my shelf. I want books that I know I'm going to read multiple times over, instead of just buying books. I'm not saying that I don't buy books without impulse, but I do try to be more mindful about it. So nowadays, the way I usually accumulate my books is I will ask for certain books either for my birthday or for Christmas, which for me that totally works out because my birthday's in June and then Christmas is obviously in December, so it's evenly spaced out. Or sometimes what people want to do is, if they can't find a certain book or they just don't go out shopping that much, they'll get a gift card for me. Then I can actually have the pleasure of buying the books myself, which that's also another way how I accumulate my books, is mainly through gifts. And occasionally I'll go out shopping and buy books of my own. I think all of these with the exception of Leviathan Wakes have been recent purchases, but I did buy all of these books on my own, but not necessarily all at the same time. I buy like a book here, 2 books here. And they're the ones that I really want to read or really want to, that I know that I'm going to love and enjoy. Dilemma number 5, comments. How do you respond to comments of "how do you read so much" and other similar comments? What I usually tell people when they ask me, how do I read so much? I basically tell them it's something that I prioritize in my life. Everyone has a hobby that they prioritize, and reading is the hobby that I prioritize for myself. It's what I do to unwind for the day. It's what I do to just enjoy my time. Some people have video games, some people have exercising in one sport or another. For me, it's reading. So that's why I read so much. I prioritize it. Dilemma number 6. Next book. How do you pick your next book to read? I am one of those people that I'm a mood reader. Like hardcore mood reader. If I'm not in the mood for it, it's either, if I make myself read it, it's going to take longer, or I just won't even pick it up. But sometimes if I force myself to pick up a book and I get maybe 20, 40 pages into it and I'm like, oh, I'm really feeling it, it can change my mind. So sometimes I make myself start a book that I know I need to get to, but whether I actually stick with the book or not depends on how far I get into it. Sometimes I know that it's just a matter of I'm not in the mood for it right now, but I still want to read it eventually, and sometimes it's like, oh God, why did I pick up this book? And off it goes. It's completely random for the most part. That's the next one too. Dilemma number 7, which is my living nightmare right now. Traveling. How do you pick what books to bring with you on vacation? I did a whole video about what books I was wanting to pick for this travel, and as I told you, it changed because I literally, guys, I kid you not, the books that I brought with me was all in my carry-on. I think I had like 2 changes of clothes in case we got stuck somewhere, but my whole entire carry-on was just filled with books. That was it. Just books. Books and change of clothes. But normally, this is kind of out of the norm situation. Normally when I'm going on vacation, the books that I pick are ones that I know are going to be light. And by light, I mean there's a difference between reading Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series and reading, for me, like R.A. Salvatore's Legend of Drizzt series. The Legend of Drizzt series is really easy to read, easy to put down, easy to pick up. While Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series, I feel like I have to be in that world for an extended period of time. I need to be reading for a good hour in order to really understand what's going on and stick with the story. And it takes up not all of my mental thinking to remember what's going on and keep everything on track, but I do have to put more effort into reading Brandon Sanderson's books than I do with R.A. Salvatore. So that's something I usually take into account, is if it's something that is light. Normally, I don't bring thick, dense books unless I'm really into the book and I know it's probably going to be the only one I read, such as Leviathan Wakes. You know, it's a really quick, easy read. As you can see, I'm pretty far into it. I've only got like a couple more days of reading with the read-along thing that's going on, but it's very light, easy to read. I would be more inclined to bring this bigger book just because I know that I'm getting through it pretty quickly. Depending on the vacation, if it's for like a week, I'll bring like 2 books. If I'm going home to visit my family, I usually bring 3, maybe 4, just because I know that there's going to be some downtime when my parents are at work and I'm at home. So I'll bring more books because I know I'll have more time to read. But typically it's about 2 to 3, maybe 4. Dilemma number 8. Annotate. Do you write, highlight, or mark up your books in any way? No. No, I don't. This might be surprising for some of you, but the only book that I've ever marked up is the Bible, because I used to have like a color-coded system where if I had questions about certain verses, I'd highlight it in blue, and then I would write in the margin like what my question was. If I had, I think if it was pink, it was a verse I wanted to memorize. If it was yellow, it was just a verse that really stuck out to me that was really interesting. And then I had green. Oh, green was for researching. Like if there was something contextually that I wasn't understanding that was like a cultural thing or just of that time period, and I'm like, I should look into this to see what it means, then I'd highlight it green. So that's the only book I've ever marked up. When it comes to the books that I read for fun, I don't mark them up. I'm trying to remember if I ever marked up books when I was in college, and I don't think I did. Now that I've got this book channel, it might be something that I start doing. Maybe not necessarily writing in my books, but I know a lot of people use the tabs, like post-it note tabs, to mark up certain pages. So that might be something I try out, but not really sure. If there's a favorite annotation method that you use, let me know down below. Or if there's someone's video and you really like their system, link it down below for me, because I am interested to see what people do for different kinds of annotation. Dilemma number 9. New or backlist? Do you prefer new releases or backlist books? I am definitely a backlist person. Very rarely will you find books that are new releases from me. Stephen King's The Institute was one. I think Middle Game was another one for me. In an Absent Dream. But even then, In an Absent Dream wasn't that new of a release. It was just released the same year. But most of the books I read are definitely backlisted. I'll listen to people talk about books, or I'll get started into a genre that I never really explored before, and people reference certain books or certain authors, and I want to read up on those authors or read up on those books to get caught up with the current writing. Not that it would be in a series or anything, it's just I want to understand what people are referencing, and so that's what tends to happen. Like that's what happened with R.A. Salvatore. Was I knew he was a really big fantasy writer, but I didn't know anything about it, so I started with his Legend of Drizzt series. And the last dilemma, number 10, sequels. Let me read this straight off so I make sure I have it right. Do you read books as they are released, or wait for an entire series to be published before reading one book? Neither. I am in the category of I'll hear about a book and it sounds really interesting. I pick it up, I read it. It's like, oh wow, I really like that book. And then it takes forever for me to get to the second book. And it could be a book that's been published for a while, or it could be a book that hasn't been published yet, and then later on it does get published, and then it just takes... I am a sequel starter. I rarely finish series, like rarely. I'm trying to think of, besides Harry Potter, I'm trying to think if I've ever finished a series. There's Death Note, but that's a manga. Oh, this is sad. Hunger Games. Finished Hunger Games. I think that's it. Like, maybe I could come up with more, but honestly, people, I don't finish very many series. So that's why I was so excited about actually getting a Clariel, because that means I'm one book away from finishing that series, or at least being up to date with it. I mean, I'm in both camps when we come to actually looking at the question. For example, the Stormlight Archive. So I had a friend tell me about Way of Kings. Said it was absolutely amazing, his favorite fantasy of all time. Gotta read it. So, okay, I'll check it out. So I read Way of Kings. Loved it. And then it took some time for me before I got to Words of Radiance, which is the second book. So what did I do? I reread A Way of Kings, and then I read Words of Radiance. The book came out, Oathbringer, in November or December of last year. And so what did I do? I got Oathbringer. I think it was a Christmas gift. And I decided I was going to reread the whole series again because I wanted it fresh in my mind. I'm one of those people, I want it fresh in my head. So I'll reread the whole series, and I took notes on it this time, so I wouldn't have to reread it again. But yeah, I read 1, 2, and I read Edge Dancer, which is kind of like a short story in between 2 and 3. And then I started Oathbringer, and I got burnt out. So that's why I haven't finished it yet. Anyway, I'm one of those people. I'm series starter, and I'm a series rereader. So whenever a new book comes out in the series, like Wayward Children series by Shauna McGuire, I told you guys that I had that 4th book, but I wanted to reread the series to get up to the 4th book. That is just classic me. That's what I do, and it's a constant dilemma because then I never finish a series because I want to reread every series from the beginning, and then I just never get to it. So lovely. Yeah, that was all the questions on the book tag. Feel free, anyone who wants to do this book tag, it's probably been out for a while, but feel free to do it. I would love to see what you guys do. So if you happen to do this book tag, please leave your link down below so I can see it as well. And then also stay tuned because I have a fun month planned for October. Dare I say, a Vlogtober coming up. So I will be releasing a video about that in a few days of what I'm planning to do. And then I'll wrap up the month with my September wrap up. So hopefully I'll see you guys soon. Have an awesome day. See ya.